How accurate is the idea that Spanish colonization in the Americas was significantly more brutal than the other colonial powers, which is the French and the English? So the Spanish were pretty brutal, very brutal. They wiped out the entire population of Hispaniola, which is the island which is today Cuba and uh, Dominica. For let's where is Hispaniola? Not Dominica, not Cuba and Dominica, but Haiti and the Dominican Republic. This island here was called Hispaniola. It was the home of the Arawak people, and Christopher Columbus was the governor for a while of this island, and he exterminated those people, wiped them out of existence, genocided them. Um, so that's one. So that is Spanish brutality, right? Um, and the Spanish also brutalized the Mexicans, which is the Aztec Triple Alliance, the Incas. They conducted all kinds of barbaric genocides, massacres. When you had the Coronado expedition, which started in Mexico, which was then called New Spain, it went further north into Arizona, etc. What they did is that they had this directive from their king, from their government. Then you see, your job is to find a treasure and wealth for the king, but it's also to convert the local people to Christianity. And you are allowed to fight the local people, but you have to first give them a chance to convert. So they had this legal document which they had to read out, saying that this land is now taken over by the king of Spain, and this document shows you that it is legal, and you are exhorted to convert to Christianity. If you do that, then we will not murder you and rape you and enslave you, but we will treat you as second-class citizens, and we will allow you to live as long as you become Christian. And if you don't, then we are at liberty to kill you all. And the Spaniards, you know what they would do? They would stand outside a native city at in the middle of the night, 5 kilometers away, and they will read it out to nobody in particular, but in the direction of the city. And then they'll say, yeah, you see, they did not convert. They did not listen to us. They didn't convert. So let's go and kill them all. So they were pretty brutal in that manner. So the Spaniards were very brutal. But once the natives converted to Christianity, they were allowed to live. They were not massacred. There was obviously, and they were not enslaved also if they converted to Christianity. They merely became servants and second-class citizens. Those who survived the smallpox. That's the deal with the Spanish colonization. Pretty brutal. They destroyed the native culture, language, religion as far as possible. In certain parts of South America, you still have local languages that survive. Some local culture survives. Sometimes some local religions also survive, but mostly it's all the official languages. I mean, the official language in all the countries in South America is Spanish, apart from Brazil, which is Portuguese. A different story. When it comes to the other colonial powers, the French and the British, the French, they tried to be nice to the natives. They actually tried to be friends with the natives as long as it was possible initially. I'm talking about the 1500s. Later, when the French established colonies in North America, way more north of Florida, in what is now Canada, etc., Quebec, and so on, they were pretty brutal against the natives. Okay, but the French did not win the war, right? The war to colonize North America. It is the English who won that. Now, were the English less brutal than the Spanish? The English were far more brutal. They wiped out the Native Americans. They killed millions of bisons. They almost completely exterminated the bison from North America because the Native Americans depended on the bison for living. And today, how many Native Americans exist in North America? And what is their status in society today? I would say overall, if you look at the colonization of the Americas, about 100 million Native Americans were exterminated. Most of that happened at the hands of the Anglos, not so much the Spanish. So overall, the Anglos were the most brutal, very systematic, very bureaucratic about that. They passed laws. That said that very large parts of North America would be cleared of natives. the natives would be moved to other parts of North America. You had the Trail of Tears. You had the uh, so-called Indian Wars that went on for like a couple of centuries, in which they were essentially genocided out of existence, almost out of existence. And today, the Native Americans are allowed to live on small parcels of land called reservations, where they technically have a sovereignty of some kind, apparently, to some extent. Not real sovereignty, but local police level sovereignty they have. And it's typically barren land, and there's not much you can do to generate an income or whatever. So overall, the Spanish were indeed brutal, they were indeed barbaric, but not as much as the Anglos.